Hey everybody, and welcome to our early comics review video. I'm Andy.
I'm Matt.
We're here with Infinity Flux Comics out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, and this is our bigger show where we show you some of the biggest and best books that are coming out this week to your local comic book store, or if you shop with us at infinityflux.net, they're on their way to you in the mail. Carried by the stork. The comic book stork
That's right.
deliver new baby comics to your doorstep.
And you have to raise them and
You
feed
have to raise
them
them and feed them, and one day they'll become an omnibus.
That's right. Oh, that's right. Nice.
But we've got a great show for you. It's an interesting week. There is, it's kind of a small week. If you didn't know, we're leading up to Free Comic Book Day. I feel like a lot of the companies kind of held back on releasing a ton of number of stuff.
Right.
But there are some big titles this week.
Yeah.
So more bang for your buck, I would say.
Yeah, it's a smaller week, but with some really big books.
Yeah. So, but some really good ones, and you don't want to miss out on them. Just these ones we're starting out with are going to be really cool. So, kick it off.
Yeah, we're going to start with Blood Hunt #1. We've been, looking forward to this for a while, and it's finally here. Written by Jed MacKay. The art is by Pepe Larraz. And I'll go ahead and say this was really good. It's really good. I know every time a Marvel or DC announces an event, kind of feels like, oh gosh, another one and all the tie-ins, but it's really good. This first issue was 2 thumbs up. I loved it. In this one, all of the Dark Force users around the Marvel Universe, like Cloak and Dark Star, I think, I don't know. There's a bunch of them.
As far as my knowledge of
there's a bunch of them. No,
users,
they all get turned into essentially portals to the Dark Force dimension that they have the connection with. And all of the Dark Force energy comes out of the Dark Force dimension and blots out the sun across the planet, right? So they call it, there's like a countdown in the beginning. It says sun death, minus 8 minutes, minus 5 minutes, and then sun death 0. So the world has gone dark, basically. And then out of these portals, just a huge horde of vampires comes out all over the world and just starts attacking people everywhere. Well, the Avengers, because they're the Avengers, they get involved, and it's not long before they run into our new group of villains behind this called the Blood Coven. They are a new group of vampires who each have their own kind of mystical abilities. If you've read the beginning of this Avengers run, it's kind of like when the Avengers fought the Ashen Combine, but only vampires instead.
Yeah, they're vampires, but they do look wildly different.
Yeah.
And it's not like all your traditional like blood-sucking vampires.
Right.
They all kind of have a spin on the vampire lore.
So, and a lot of this issue is a fight between the Avengers and the Blood Coven up in the Impossible City, and it go like you might think for the event. You think, oh, the Avengers, Earth's mightiest heroes. The Blood Coven is really powerful. These vampires are extremely powerful, and it just doesn't go well for the Avengers. The vampires also, just want to mention, they have a connection to the big clan of vampires that Moon Knight fought back in Jed MacKay's first run of Moon Knight from, it was about a year or so ago. But if you haven't read that, it's okay. Like, you're not going to be lost, but it's just a cool extra little thing. If you did read that, oh, they're kind of tied in with those vampires. That's cool. So, but nothing that you'll be missing out on. But and then at the end we do find out who is behind all this to begin with, and then that's going to be a whole big thing.
Yeah, it's cool how it sets up. There's a lot of action. And then it turns it to intrigue about like, wait, what?
Yeah,
like,
what?
Now you start asking questions.
That's right.
Which I feel like is a great structure for a story.
Yeah, so very, very good. I was blown away with how much I enjoyed this. Like, I was turning pages like, this is great, this is great. So yeah, we have our A cover right here. Now, we want to also talk about the red band version as well, because every issue of the main series is going to have a red band version. These are polybag. Now, when we read this, we lined up both books and turned the pages at the exact same time.
Yeah.
I can tell you there are 2 extra pages in this book that are not in this book. They don't add anything anymore. So if you don't get the red band, you'll still get the full story, but it's just like a little extra seasoning, if you will.
Yeah.
And not only does it
marinara sauce.
That's right, yeah. And if also in this it's a little bit bloodier as well. There are quite a few panels that have a little bit of extra blood, a little bit extra gore, a little bit more mature.
What I did like about it is I was wondering, did they just, take the red splatter brush
Right.
and run it over the pages a few times? No, this is, you can look at panels and be like, oh, I see how they changed it from
Yeah.
here to here. And it is like additional art and everything that really does, I feel like, up the intensity of what's going on. Especially, there's a few key scenes. Like you said, there are some additional pages. There's one of those that has kind of a narration that now I want to go back and read, knowing more about what's going on. But it's nothing that like is changes the story at all.
Right.
But I feel like the intensity of the scenes plays out. Especially there's a scene towards the end that really hits home quite a bit harder.
It's it's wildly different in the two versions, but the same point still gets across.
Yeah.
So you're still gonna understand, but in this one it's a little bit more intense, we'll say. But yeah, I mean, like I said, some of those panels, some of them are different panels.
Yeah.
Still conveying the same story, but the panels, there's just different things in the panels. So I just want to let you know about the difference between the red band polybag version for your readers and then the regular version.
I believe there's a price difference.
Yeah, also the polybag version is it's
tough, right?
The polybag version is $6.99 versus the A cover, which is $5.99. So it's an extra $1, but it's worth it. I think
$2 2 pages plus,
plus some cooler looking panels.
Right.
Yeah,
I would say I would pay the extra dollars for the biggest change on one of the final pages.
Right.
I felt like Pepe Larraz had way more fun with the red band version.
Yeah, for sure. So, but by and large, you're still going to get the same story. You're still going to understand what's going on, regardless of which version you pick. So that's the red band. That's the A cover. And outside of all that, there's a bunch of variants as well. So we have this really awesome Art Germ variant with Tigra. I love this one, and we're going to see a lot more of her in the Vengeance of the Moon Knight series that ties in with this. We're going to talk about that a little bit later too, so stay tuned because we'll have a little bit more blood information. So really cool cover there.
We've also for the variants, all the variants are the non-red band.
That's
version.
right. That's right. There is one. There is a red band variant, but it's an incentive cover, and we don't.
Yeah, but all the open order ones are the regular edition.
Yeah. So these are all the regular versions. So that's the Peach Momoko cover with Vision. We've also got this Baldeon variant with Blade biting some Blade candy, I guess.
Some Blade bubble gum.
There's the Lionel Francis Yu variant right there. I think this is a wraparound too, isn't it? Yeah, this is a wraparound with the back there. We've also got the John Tyler Christopher Negative Space variant featuring Blade in his original look. I wish he looked like this in this story. That would have been so funny. Nice juxtaposition there. This is the Fernandez, foil variant. This looks really nice. And then we've got the incentives here. We've got the 1 in 10 connecting variant. I really like that one a lot. We have the 1 in 25 Kale New variant, which looks very, very cool. And then this is the 1 in 25 red band. So this is the only other one that's the red band. It's a 1 in 25. It's a homage cover. And yeah, you can see Thor on there as well. Thor's got a couple interesting panels in this one too. So yeah, super great, nice, good, big action-packed start to a new event.
Yeah, I like also, like you said, like the Avengers go up against them, and literally what the vampires do, like it kind of explains how they take on each of the Avengers, and you're like, I don't know how they're going to get out of this because pretty much anything that they have not working.
Yeah, so, they were prepared.
They were prepared and still not good.
Right.
Okay, so next up, I've got Superman House of Brainiac Special. This is also House of Brainiac issue 2.5 if you're following the numbers between Action and Superman back and forth. So this is interesting. I see after reading it why this isn't part of the main.
Yep.
This isn't in one of the Superman or Action comic stories because this is definitely a this is your bonus features to what's going on.
A little bit more extra seasoning on your story,
So this is broken into kind of 3 chapters, all a little bit, I think, kind of narrated by Brainiac. He kind of introduces. Mm-hmm. He's looking at all his mini panels.
Well, the first and the third one. Yeah. Well, the first one is for sure. Yeah.
Oh, even the second one, I think he does he sees the humans and what they're
Oh,
doing.
okay.
But I loved in this, all of his TV screens looked like bongo drums. He had them all
Yeah.
lined up next to him, and I was like, that looks fun. I'm going to hit all of those. But so we've got 3 stories. The first one is by Joshua Williamson, and the art is by Edwin Gallman. And this one's really cool because this is basically explaining what is Brainiac's connections to the Zarnians, Lobo's people, to their home planet, which even to Lobo thought it was completely wiped out. And we see why he's not wrong about that.
Right.
He's not wrong about his planet being decimated, but we do know that that Brainiac has some Zarnians under his control, under his kind of as his army, and that all kind of gets explained of how Lobo's story can be true and Brainiac can still have all these, which is really interesting and kind of I think gives a little extra complexity to Brainiac because you kind of think of him as just like a computer. Like, I take a city, I wipe out the rest of the planet, I move on. But there's some stuff about some of the different planets he goes to that intrigues him, kind of spins it a different way. So that's a really interesting story. But yeah, that one we learned about Brainiac's history with Zarnia. The second chapter is about what's going on Earth right now with Perry White, which I feel like is fun to get back to because that was teased or kind of brought up very early in Superman. And then we haven't talked about it, but just kind of panels here and there. But Perry White is running for mayor of Metropolis. And what does this mean? So this is written by Mark Russell and the artist by Steve Pugh. And it's actually from kind of the perspective of Bibbo.
Right. Yeah. Who's like one of his campaign managers, or he's working on the campaign.
Yeah, who is self-proclaimed Superman's best pal.
Yeah.
Who also owns a bar, which is funny. So before the hours of the bar being open, he's a campaign manager. When the bar opens, he switches shirts and then he's just works at the bar. But you see kind of the division in the city. You see who Perry's running up against, who's kind of going on this like anti-alien platform, saying, Superman, look at all the Brainiacs and stuff. They just revealed to you that Superman is a threat for here, and you don't want Perry White. He worked for the Daily Planet. That was propaganda for Superman, all this kind of stuff. And really, you see what Perry White's. He's just a guy on the street, and he's going to try to make good in his city.
Yeah.
And you see that kind of story play out, which is really fun. And it seems like they're going to follow up on that later because it's kind of a big part of this.
Yeah, this chapter of the book was the longest part of the 3 of them, and I feel like they wouldn't have spent this much time on it for it not to pay off later. Like for Perry just to lose the race and that be it. Like there's a reason why they're focusing on this so much. I think it's going to come into be a factor later.
Yeah, and then we've got our third story, which is Joshua Williamson and Fico Osio, which the art in this is awesome.
Yeah.
And this one's kind of big too. I feel like this is maybe our biggest lead into Absolute Power because it deals with Amanda Waller and what is her connection with Brainiac. Amanda Waller, who is up and up on everything. You can't get anything around her. But there are certain elements, even that have been teased for quite a while in the DC universe, that Amanda Waller didn't know. And in this, we actually get kind of a reveal about the Circle of Light, which is kind of this group that has been this like behind. You don't see their faces. They're kind of
they've been pulling the strings for a while now.
Yeah. All of that is revealed in this. And I think this is really interesting and a good lead into some of the stuff we're going to be seeing in the Free Comic Book Day, Absolute Power Special, and going forward. So, all that being said, this is a really good addition to the House of Brainiac story. Is it 100% necessary? No, but I feel like if you have questions while reading that, this will answer some of the questions along the way about, well, how did Brainiac and the Zarnians, how did all that end up? So, I recommend it. I thought it was a lot of fun. There's some great art. There's some great story. But, yeah. So we've got our main cover right here. And I don't know if this one had any variants. If it did, we are out of them. So, so just the one. And kind of one of the biggest DC books this week, other than some of the annuals.
Well, next one, it was my second favorite after Blood Hunt because it was so good, and it's Space Ghost.
Space Ghost.
Oh, this was so good. This is written by David Pepose and the artist by Jonathan Lau. And yeah, this is an action-packed first issue. This is how you do a first issue because I was hooked instantly. Wanted more when it was done. In this one, the space colony Omicron, which is where Gerard Kepler and his children Jan and Jace and their monkey Blip, they all live there. Um, well, that space colony is attacked, and the people who attack it are looking for a prototype that Dr. Kepler was working on, and they basically destroy the entire colony and everyone in it except for Jan and Jace and Blib. So, but their father doesn't survive, and that's not a spoiler. That's like page 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
And so the rest of it is like the kids running from these, I don't know what to call them, like
Space Marauders type thing.
Marauder, space pirate, something like that. But the kids think that they're next. They think they're going to get killed too until Space Ghost shows up and starts taking on all these bad guys. But even though he's fighting these bad guys, the kids, Jan and Jace, they think he's after them too. So they're scared of Space Ghost. It's like, oh, thank goodness he's here. They don't know who Space Ghost is, and they think that he's another bad guy. So they spend the issue running from him while he's trying to protect them, fighting all these bad guys. But once he shows up, literally this entire issue is wall-to-wall action.
And he's using all of his
tricks.
All his tricks.
Yeah, it's great. And I mean, that's really all there is to say because there's so much action in it, and it's such a good thing. And then, I think the relationship between Space Ghost and the kids, that's really going to start next issue. But this one was just, the artwork is amazing.
Yeah.
It's just, I can't recommend this highly enough. It's funny because we joked on our Free Comic Book Day show about what decade are we in, because we got Space Ghost and Johnny Quest and Flash Gordon and Popeye, and those are some of the best books out right now. They're all great, and Space Ghost was absolutely phenomenal. Can't recommend them more highly. So we've got our A cover right here, and this being a Dynamite book, we've got a whole bunch of variants. This is the Frank Cho variant, which looks great. This is not a blank sketch variant. This is just Space Ghost, but he's invisible.
Yep.
So he's right there on the cover.
You're wrong.
Yeah, you're wrong. You just can't see him. We have a really nice foil variant of the A cover by Mattina, which is really cool. We got this nice Jay Lee variant right there. We have this really cool Alex Toth variant, which is some design notes from May of 1966, where they talk about like, oh, the symbol's on his chest now, and the buttons are going to be on his gauntlets instead of his belt, and that kind of thing. So nice old school Space Ghost notes there. And then we got some variants, the 1 in 15 Berens foil variant. There's a 1 in 40 Jay Lee black and white variant. And there is the 1 in 50 Frank Cho Virgin variant.
Yeah, so this is really cool too because it does lay groundwork a little bit for the story coming up.
Mhm.
Like Blip the monkey, there's a reason why this monkey's important.
Right.
Which is
His
really
name
cool.
is an acronym for something.
Yeah, which I think, is made up for this.
Yeah.
But that's a cool kind of expounding on the character. Plus, you will see some recognizable characters. Whether you're a fan of original Space Ghost or Coast to Coast,
Yep.
I dare you to read this book and not have those voices in
Right.
your head. Because
I encourage you to read this with those voices in your head.
There's some great dialogue, especially if you hear certain characters' voices. But I'm super excited now to see characters I'm vaguely familiar with, but played out in this like really cool superhero sci-fi book.
Yeah.
There's so much cool in that. I highly recommend people pick it up.
Yes, definitely.
Because I think whether you're a Space Ghost fan or not, you're gonna find a really solid superhero story.
It is a really fun comic book. Like
Yeah.
it is a fun comic book, which is all I want.
Yes. Okay, next up for me, I've got Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace Anniversary Special Number 1. That long title.
That's
celebrating
a mouthful.
The 25th anniversary of The Phantom Menace. This is really cool. So this is by Greg Pak and the art's by Will Sliney. And this is takes place from before Phantom Menace till after Phantom Menace a little ways. And it kind of, I don't want to say like it fills in the gaps. It's not that kind of thing, but it's weaving a narrative that we didn't see in the movie. So in this, it actually begins with Anakin having a dream of his mother being taken and him freeing her from being a slave, which is a thing he mentions in the movie that this is what he desires to do. and that he in this dream is a Jedi, but it's his version of what a Jedi looks like, which is a little bit more. He's got some of the elements right, but the lightsaber is more like flame
Oh,
and
nice.
stuff. So it's like what Anakin saw is that. But every few pages, you'll have kind of an original scene, and then you'll get some kind of dialogue that like then realigns it with the movie, where you'll see scenes from the movie, and then okay, this next scene takes place right after that. So we see like the thing with Anakin's dream, but then we'll see, oh, here's where Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and Jar Jar show up and that interaction. But then we get scenes of like, well, after a certain scene you saw happen, they have this conversation over to the side that kind of beefs up some of the ideas. One of the ones I really liked in this was um Anakin saves by not like action or anything, but a Tusken Raider has been taken as like a captive, and he distracts the slave owners so the Tusken Raider can get away, and says, "Oh, that he went that way when he actually went the other way." And this actually plays out, has a really nice book into it because of that. So it's kind of got its own little narrative within it. The other thing I really like is in the movie we never see Anakin learn of Qui-Gon's death, which I was like, I've seen this movie 100 times. And I'm like, yeah, that is weird. Qui-Gon's the one who believed in him when Obi-Wan didn't. And then we have a scene where Anakin goes to Obi-Wan after Anakin knows that Qui-Gon died and said, "You didn't want me. You thought this was a bad idea." And Obi-Wan accepting Anakin as his
Okay.
Padawan. So really nice kind of extra scenes that are really kind of heartwarming and fill up the story. So if you're a fan of episode 1 and you want to see kind of more of Anakin's young story, I think this is an awesome one for that. It's just a one shot, so I recommend this highly. I thought it was really, really cool. We've got our A cover right here. We've got our, funny enough, this is more of an episode 2
Yeah.
cover with Plo Koon and his Padawan Boltar Swan, which I always forget the name of, but I love Plo Koon. So this is our Master and Apprentice variant. We also have a Mike McCone Qui-Gon variant. We have a movie variant with Padme. And we have, I love this one. This one just looks epic. This is the 1 in 25 Mateus variant that we're selling for $39.99. Just a really cool, like, Tuscan, under a Tuscan sun.
Well, next up is Deadpool and Wolverine World War III #1. I believe this is going to be a 3-issue miniseries coming out just in time for the Deadpool and Wolverine movie. I don't know if you guys have heard about that. It's going to be,
No.
it's kind of this little art house film coming out in a couple months.
Straight to video.
Yeah, straight to streaming. Yeah. This is written by Joe Kelly, and the art is by Adam Kubert. And in this one, Wolverine gets a call. He has a flip phone. He said it never rings, but when it does ring, it's something serious. Well, it rings, and he gets called to help with a super-powered criminal that's tearing up the streets in Vancouver, basically. But when he gets there, he sees that Deadpool is already there dealing with this super-powered criminal, and the villain is spouting this gibberish, and they have some kind of energy powers. The things they're saying doesn't quite make sense. I mean, they're saying full sentences and words, but it doesn't make sense within the context of what they're doing.
There's no context for what
Right,
they're saying.
so it's a little confusing there. They have some kind of energy powers. Deadpool and Wolverine, let's just say they handle it. They deal with it in their own way, right? And when the whole thing's done, they go their separate ways. But when Wolverine gets back to his place, he sees that Deadpool has left a little calling card for him, which he then has to follow. And Wolverine basically, once again, tracks down where Deadpool is. But when he finds Deadpool this time, it appears that whoever is responsible for creating that superpowered villain that they were fighting in Vancouver earlier, they have now gotten their hands on Deadpool. And what does that mean for him? What does that mean for Wolverine? That kind of thing. And it's kind of a mystery. Like, there's a lot of unknown, which I think we'll learn as the series goes on in issue 2 and 3. So a little bit confusing right now just because we don't have the answers, but we're not supposed to have the answers. We'll learn that later. But yeah, just a good primer for Deadpool and Wolverine. If you're excited for the movie, there's this. There's also going to be that 8-part story that takes place in the backups of several different books. We're not there yet, so we'll be talking about those later when they come out. But yeah, Deadpool and Wolverine, it's always great when they get together, and here's a new miniseries of that. So we have our A cover right here, and we've got, you can't do this without a Liefeld variant.
Yeah.
So there's your Liefeld variant right there. Here is the Gabrielle variant. We have the Todd Knock Window Shades variant, which this one is great.
I think it's one of the best window
Yeah,
shades.
I love that. Then we have a 1 in 25 In-Hyuk Lee variant. I always love In-Hyuk Lee stuff. And then there is a surprise retailer polybagged variant. We're selling that one for $49.99.
Yeah, at first I thought this was going to be a team up book, but I think this might have more Deadpool versus Wolverine in it coming up.
Yeah, yep.
So next up, I've got a big one, size-wise. This is DC's Spring Breakout #1. So this is, you can see this got the spine on it. This is kind of like every few months they'll put out one of these seasonal anthologies. They do a Halloween one, they do a Christmas one, or a winter one. And this is the spring one. And this one's fun. So the key to this is it's DC's Spring Breakout. And every one of the stories, I believe, have something to do with breaking or breaking out or something. You have to think kind of hard on some of them.
Yeah.
Be like, okay, I can kind of see what they meant there. Some are a little bit more literal. So the first story in this, we got King Shark, or we got Harley Quinn breaking King Shark out of jail. And this one's fun because it's kind of a, you can see it as like nonstop action. So they break out of here, but then they fall into these characters doing something, and then at some point they fall through a portal, and then they're in space, and then Green Lantern's there.
Oh, nice.
And then suddenly they're teleported out to Superman, who's dealing with Mxyzptlk. And so it's kind of they never stop. They're just constantly going through all these things, and it's really fun. We also have a Mr. Freeze story, which I liked, and I especially liked it because it was definitely the Batman the Animated Series version of Mr. Freeze,
nice.
like that look. And in this, there is a kind of a Wayne banquet dance that Mr. Freeze shows up at, and you'll have to get to the end to see it all comes together. But maybe Bruce has actually had a run-in with Nora Freeze long before Mr. Freeze was born, type thing. So really interesting one there. We also have Teen Titans Spring Break, where they go up against the Fearsome Five. We have a Metal Men story. We have a Katana story. We have a Martian Manhunter versus Clayface, which is really funny because they both can transform. And so you've got I never quite get Clayface. Like sometimes he can transform and like his color changes too.
Yeah.
That's kind of this version, but like Martian Manhunter will turn into Superman, and then Clayface will turn into Doomsday, and they'll go like back and forth like different heroes and villains. The one I like the most in here was a Lex Luthor story where he is buried alive and must break out, and it's it's one of those like Luthor is so good with his brain, but also like just his way of I can stay calm in these situations. It shows the kind of variety of the strengths of Lex Luthor. That was fun. And then there's also a Superman baseball story during spring tryouts and everything. So
was there any stories where somebody broke out in hives?
Not that I
missed opportunity for like, I fell in poison ivy. Poison ivy. I fell in poison ivy. I'm breaking out, right?
And then she pops up. She's like, "It was me, Poison Ivy, not the planet." But no, it was fun. It was a fun. None of them are like you're gonna shake the DC universe to their core. But this is for those you want some one and done stories, just a good time, seeing some of your favorite characters going on adventures. So that's DC's Spring Breakout #1. And we have one cover for this. The covers for this were super popular. And so all we have left is the Dan Mora Batman special cover.
Which
Batman
I love.
With a bat.
Batman with a bat. I hope he calls it the Bat.
The Bat.
Yeah. All right, next is Get Fury #1. This is a new Max title. So
bringing that back from the dead.
Yeah, definitely for mature readers. There's one panel specifically that Seems like something you would see in Walking Dead. I made the comment earlier about it. This is written by Garth Ennis and the artist by Jason Burrows. This is set in 1971 during the Vietnam War. And I will say this issue was mostly setting up the story, so there's actually not much more to say about it than we didn't already know from the solicitations. We talked about this before on our Comics from the Future videos. And there's not a whole lot more to say other than what we already said in that video. But just in case you don't know, in this book, Nick Fury is kidnapped by some Vietnamese soldiers. But they targeted him specifically, and I think we'll learn more about that in future issues. But because Nick Fury is Nick Fury, he has so many government secrets in his head. He knows everything about everything. He knows where all of the undercover agents are, and he knows everything, right? And the US government does not want to risk that information falling into the hands of the enemy. And instead of rescuing him, they say that they don't, he's on the move, right? They can track him for now, but he's going to be out of their trackable area soon. And it would be much easier, instead of rescuing him, it would just be much easier to kill him to ensure that those secrets don't get leaked into the enemy hands. So in order to do that, they task Frank Castle with taking him out so that his secrets don't fall into enemy hands. And that's, it kind of wrapped up with that. So again, that's what we knew from the solicitations. I think the second issue is where we're really going to see Frank start the mission. I'm curious, is he going to do it? Probably not. How is he going to skirt that order and save him instead of kill him? That kind of thing. We will see that in later issues. This was just setting everything up. But a really cool premise. It was cool to see the Max line back, even if it's just this one book. And again, there's some mature stuff in here, so I can see why they did that. Some mature language too, so definitely a Max title. But really cool, really interesting concept. So that's our A cover right there, and we got a few variants. This is the Burroughs variant, so that's your interior artist, so that's what it looks like there. This is the Juan Ferreira variant. And then we have a 1 in 25 Antonio variant that we're selling for $19.99.
I like the idea of Nick Fury and Frank Castle working together
Yeah.
back in the day,
Mhm.
because it's something I would like to see them then go about and address once they're Nick Fury of Shield and Punisher,
yeah.
of like, I know you
Yeah,
type thing.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it would be cool for this to continue on after this is done, to continue on into like a Marvel universe or
Yeah.
something.
okay, next up for me, I've got my first of the annuals for this month. This is, I guess, for this year.
Yeah.
Annuals only come out once a year. This is Harley Quinn Annual 2024. And this is written and drawn by Erica Henderson. So it's a whole Erica Henderson joint. And this, as you can kind of tell on the cover, Harley goes on a cruise. Now, you'll have to read to find out why and how she gets on this cruise. But she's what I really thought was funny is she's very Harley on this cruise, where she's out there. I think she's out there for like a week or something. She burns through everything to do on the first day.
Oh, nice.
And by the second day, she is bored. But she does find out that there is a magic show about to go on, put on by Zatanna.
Okay.
And Harley Quinn's like, I know her. She's put me in jail before. And so Harley, being Harley, goes down to her dressing room to meet her, and something's a little weird with Zatanna there. She's not quite acting, maybe like she doesn't recognize her or anything. So it's a little bit of mystery there. But when the performance takes place, uh, there is like the lights cut out all of a sudden. It's actually when they're doing like throwing the knives at the spinning person, and the lights cut out. When they come back on, someone is dead.
Ooh.
And it looks like it was Zatanna. So it's up to Harley to figure out what went on, to save kind of her friend. I think Harley's like, whoever's around me is my friend.
Yeah.
I recognize Zatanna, so she's my friend on
Mhm.
this cruise. And she's going to have to prove her innocence. So really fun one. Definitely a little bit more, other than the murder part, pretty lighthearted. Harley
Other than
affair.
murder, it's pretty light, aren't you?
For a Harley thing, she's making goofs all along the way.
Yeah.
So if you're a fan of that, I don't think it really ties in with what's going on in the main Harley series too heavily. It's kind of a standalone, fun vacation story for Harley. So, and I just have the one cover for it.
All right. Well, next up is Bear Pirate Viking Queen #1, not to be confused with Cowboy Ninja Viking from several years ago, from Image.
Or Cowboys versus
That's
Aliens,
right.
or
Yeah. So this one's written by Sean Lewis, and the art is by Jonathan Marks Baravecchia. And the story is centered around Captain Paul Reddish of the Queen's Navy. This is set back in like, I don't know if they gave a year, but like olden times, you know what I mean? And one day his ship was overtaken by pirates, and he was thrown out into the sea and left for dead. This Captain Paul Reddish was. While he's in the sea, he met a bear, which sounds weird, and I mean that literally. Like there's a bear in the ocean, and the
sea bears.
yeah, good old sea bears. But the bear helped him survive, and he gets out, and this whole experience has kind of opened his eyes a little bit, and he realizes that he is tired of protecting the queen's money while having no money for himself, and he decides to become a pirate himself. And he calls himself Reddish the Baron. And with his trusty bear by his side, he finds a new crew, and they go out and attack the British bank ship, using a really clever plan to do that. Like I thought that was really cool. And so that all sounds totally normal, right? But then things get weird after that. After that heist, they run into an old Viking ship, which is where the Viking part comes in, and things get even crazier from there with Vikings and what happens to his crew. And I don't the Queen part hasn't happened yet, so I guess we'll get that in the second issue. But a really interesting story. This, I will say, this book is it's $4.99 and it's 72 pages and no
Wow.
ads or anything, so you get a lot of book for this. The artwork is painted like it's very painterly, like watercolors and that kind of thing. It has a very unique look to it, and it's a very unique story of this royal member of the Queen's Navy becoming a pirate and doing his own thing, and then even weirder stuff happens after that. So I highly recommend it if you're just looking for something a little bit different. And this is the only cover.
Next up for me, I've got Robo Force. This is the new one in the Nacelle universe that started off with our issue 0 a little while ago, but this is the universe that's going to encompass Robo Force. It's going to have Sectars, it's going to have Biker Mice from Mars, Great Garloo, Power Lords. This is kind of a bunch of your 80s toy lines,
Yeah.
all brought together, 80s and 90s toy lines.
I do want to show the Biker Mice from Mars advertisement.
Oh, yeah.
Makes that look really cool when that comes out. So that looks awesome.
Yeah, and this is a shared universe. This is our first 3-issue miniseries in that. I believe each of the properties is going to be a 3-issue miniseries, but we're starting off with this one, which actually does pick up a little bit of the story from the 0 issue, where the Great Garloo was looking for a new home planet, and he did end up choosing Earth. That was written by Melissa Flores, and this is also written by Melissa Flores, so it kind of is a good like first series to come off of that. There's a couple of different artists in this that took it on. You can kind of tell when it changes, but we follow Max 89, Copter, Wrecker, and some of the other Robo Force robots. As they are, it's kind of funny when you see them. They're kind of just like sitting around playing chess. One of them is like a kind of a combat robot, and he's playing darts, and he's just like loaded up all his combat stuff with darts, but he still misses
Oh, nice.
the bullseye and stuff. But you're like, why are these guys just like hanging out? Like they're really cool robots. Well, they were created by someone named Soraya, and she's kind of a young scientist, but like I said in our other show, it's like any technology. As soon as something new comes out, and the RoboForce came out, they were already outdated.
Mm.
And there seems to be maybe somebody else who is building some robots that are a little bit more refined, not quite as clunky, that kind of thing. And RoboForce was out of a job. They were each kind of set up to do different things. There's one that's kind of construction. There's the one that's kind of more combat, all of that. But now RoboForce kind of doesn't have anything to do, but they're very attached to their creator. She's kind of like a mother to them. It's almost like the Ninja Turtles with Splinter. It's
Okay.
like, they really respect and love their creator. But they find out that she is working on an upgrade for them. Something that can kind of bring them up to. It's kind of a software update, but
Okay.
that should kind of bring them up to the level of the all the other robots and really give them a new start in life. Well, that's all great until someone breaks in and steals that, and now it's up to Robo Force to find that upgrade and get it back. Who did all this? We don't quite know all the answers yet, but it sets up a pretty fun first story. A lot of this is world building and kind of introducing the different robots to you. I really like it because it is kind of that like big clunky robot
Yeah.
universe. They're not all slim and sleek. They're kind of big legs, kind of
Yeah.
can't fit through doorways, kind of thing. So that was really fun, and I'm looking forward to all of the Nacelle versus stories coming up. And so we're starting off with, and they don't start like 1 month we'll have all of Robo Force, then the next month will start. They're not overlapping. Once you finish one, then the next one will come
Okay.
out, which is nice. So you're not like getting too much all
Yeah.
at once. And I think they're going to kind of lead into each other. Plus, Robo Force is getting a animated series on, I believe, Netflix.
Okay.
So very, very cool in there. And I just have the one cover for it.
Well, next is the Nightwing Annual. We told you we had a couple annuals this time around. So this is Nightwing, but this one is all about. It says the secret origin of Bee Bennett, the Pirate Queen. So Bee Bennett is a. She's been a big part of. She was a part of Rick Grayson's life for a while. Now part of Dick Grayson's life now. This is actually written and drawn by Travis Moore. And this issue goes through her whole life, basically, starting when her mother was killed when they were on a boat together back when she was 9 years old. It shows her growing up on the streets until she was taken in by her pirate family. It shows her when she eventually joined the ranks of Spiral, which we know Dick Grayson was a part of for a while. And she was tasked with keeping an eye on Dick Grayson after he got shot by the KGB and lost his memories and became Rick Grayson. It kind of like the Get Fury book. They were like, he knows too much about Spiral, and even though he's lost his memory, it might come back one day. So you need to ingrain yourself in his life so you can keep an eye on him and keep us updated. So that was a whole big thing with her. All the while, she's trying to learn who it was that killed her mother, and that's her like through line. That's her main goal in doing everything. I will say there's a lot of double agents and a lot of double crossing in this story. I actually worked for this and this while I was doing this, and you didn't know, but then you also were working. There's like it's all over the place, but it's really cool. I mean, it's a nice in one book. They give you a nice comprehensive look at her life and really help you understand like who she is as a character and why she, why she. It's kind of neat thinking back to when she was just in the Nightwing book as a supporting character and then a love
Mm-hmm.
interest. There was a whole lot more going on behind the scenes that we didn't know about, and now we do. So I thought that was really cool anyway. So yeah, if you're a fan of that character, if you've been collecting Nightwing, don't miss out on this annual. And we have this Matina variant as well.
So next up for me, I've got a kind of a double feature that is pretty cool. So this week we saw the release of The Whisper Queen #1. This is a 3-issue miniseries by Chip Zdarsky, and art is by Chris Anka. Now, this is a follow-up to a 2-issue miniseries called The White Trees, which is actually really nice. That it is also this week collected both issues in a one-shot volume.
That's really cool they did that because I wasn't aware of this. And then when
Yeah.
I read about the Whisper Queen, I was like, oh, wait, there's a whole other 2-issue thing that I haven't read.
Yeah, it's set in the world of Black Sand. So it's a little hard to talk about one and not the other one. And I didn't read White Trees when it came out. I remember it, but I never read it. And so it kind of had to get kind of a crash course in all of this. So I'm looking forward to sitting down and reading all of this,
Mhm.
this first volume and then this together. But it's set in the world of Black Sand, and peace has come to the world of Black Sand, but with great cost. And that is all in White Trees. So we're kind of picking up on this world that's like post kind of fantasy war. And this is a pretty fantasy book.
Mhm.
You've got characters, I don't know if they're called elves or whatever. They got pointy ears and they're, purple and giant and blue.
They're
And
either elves or Vulcans.
yeah,
Yeah.
one of those two. So this first volume, White Trees, is about 3 soldiers who were definitely affected after the war and everything. But it feels like this new book, The Whisper Queen, kind of picks up on some stuff so much so that I think you should read White Trees
Yeah.
beforehand. It does kind of it doesn't give you like a page of like here's what you missed. It kind of fills you in, but I feel like the impact will be missed if you don't read
Mm.
White Trees first. Because in this one, the king has been murdered, and it happened in the throne room. All the royal guards were murdered too. But unlike a lot of stories like this, the assassin was actually taken out right there.
Okay.
But he did have some accomplices, and so they're going to get the most capable bounty hunter in the land, known as the Dark Whisper, who's going to go after them. Here's the thing: it seems like maybe some of the characters are related from these two books.
Mm.
That's why I feel like the impact of everything will be felt more if you've read The White Trees, which is great because they both come out the same
Yeah,
week.
you can get the whole
So
thing. Yep.
you get the whole thing. I'll say these are very mature.
Yes.
I
Do
showed out
not
a
let
few
your kids
pages.
read this.
Yeah, no, this is very mature, but in the style that Chip Zdarsky is known for. It's a fun way, but also like this is an HBO
Yeah.
for sure. So. All that being said, I'm looking forward to sitting down and reading them all the way through to fully get the story. I don't quite get it yet, but I know I will once I read it all. So I recommend picking up both White Trees and Whisper Queen. And we've got a couple of variants for Whisper Queen. So we've got, and this is a character who is not the Dark Whisper, the bounty hunter, which I originally thought that's who it was. Now this is another very interesting character that's kind of our protagonist in here. So this is our Fiona Staples variant, and we have this O'Connell variant as well.
Well, next is Toxic Summer #1. This is a new book that is written and drawn by Derek Charm. I'll say this is a 6.99 book, but it is double sized, so another big meaty book for what you're getting. This is about best friends named Ben and Leo. They plan to spend the summer in a beach town named Port Dorian. They get jobs as lifeguards, or they apply to get jobs as lifeguards, so that they can look at hot guys and be around all the beach parties and stuff. Like they plan to have just like the best summer ever. But when they get to Port Dorian, they are horrified to find that a massive toxic spill has polluted the water, killed all of the marine life, and caused the beach to be closed. Nobody's there because it's such a beach town. No, there are no tourists there. Like this, it's like the town is dead because of all this toxic spill. So instead of being lifeguards, they're actually tasked with cleaning up the beach. And they hope that if they do, then everyone will come back and they can have the summer that they originally planned. But unbeknownst to them, there are strange things in the water and strange creatures on the beach. So by the time you get to the end of it, there's a little bit of a kind of a, I don't want to say supernatural, but more of like a monster vibe, maybe like some kind of toxic monster vibe to it. And yeah, it's pretty interesting. You know, most of it is just a setup establishing their situation. They do meet some other friends, but it's almost like, like Scooby Doo monsters,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like that. I mean, not quite as goofy, but kind of like that. The art is a little bit more on the cartoony side. Well, it looks like this, but it's a very colorful book. The artwork
Yeah, I
does
like the
fit the
bright
story.
greens they're
Yeah.
using.
Oh, it's very bright colors. Like the inside looks like this, so it's pretty cool. And yeah, it's really fun. And got to see what these things are because it looks like it could have a slightly like almost like a comedy horror kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing to it. But yeah, really fun book. So there is our A cover right there, and then we have the 1 in 10 Virgin variant of that as well that we're selling for $19.99.
Well, next up for me, I've got X-Men number 34. And X-Men ends at issue 35. So this is
Mm-hmm.
our penultimate issue of the main X-Men title that has been running for a very long time now.
And I'm pretty sure the X-Men 35 is it's the end.
Yeah.
Until we get into the
It's
new era.
it's
That's it.
the final,
That,
everything kind of
yep.
winds up there. So this one, as you would imagine, is wrapping up a lot of the storylines that have been going on with MODOK, with kind of a lot of the Orcus side characters. But I think the kind of most interesting part of this actually happens at the end.
Yeah.
It kind of is a, I don't want to say an epilogue, but like, okay, we got that story behind us. Let's now like show you a lead into the final story that involves Kate Pride. You're kind of wondering like where is she? She's on this like lone street, and that's when she sees Wolverine. And as Wolverine has not been a part of the Krakoan era for a long time, he's had his own Wolverine title and everything, but he's kind of standoffish when it comes to the whole
Yeah.
situation that's been going on. Well, uh, let's just say Kate Pride has kind of figured out who's the good guys and who's the bad guys in here, and maybe not everyone on her side is, as she determined, is good. And I love the relationship between the two because it goes back so far.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's like his almost like adopted daughter in
Hmm.
some points. And when she asks him to do something, it's, you know, he's gonna do it, even if that means taking out someone on their own side. So pretty interesting final act on this one. There is a line said in this one that is very reminiscent of No More Mutants, said by Wanda,
Yep.
but Kate says it, and you have to see what it is. But very interesting issue, and I'm looking forward to the issue 35 to really be like, okay, because there's now a character that I'm wondering if we're going to see into the next era of X-Men after what happens here. But very interesting issue, especially that last part. I really like that. That is our A cover. We have a Hildebrandt variant, which is very apt with Shadowcat. We've got this really nice Russell Dodderman variant. Great team. And we have the black suit variant with Rogue by Phil Noto.
Well, next is the Blood Brothers Mother. This is a new book from Distillery, written by Brian Azzarello, and the art is by Eduardo Risso. That is your 100 Bullets team.
Mm-hmm.
In this one, a man named Carter Kane, he is released from a Mexican prison after being in there for 5 years. One of the first things he does when he gets out is he asks his gang where his, I guess she's his girlfriend. He says, "Where is Anna?" And they have to tell him, well, she's actually married to someone else now, and she has three bastard sons. So I guess the sons aren't, they don't belong to Carter, but they don't belong to the guy she's with either. But she has three sons that I guess she, uh, well, I guess actually she did have them when she was with Carter. I don't know, but and she does have three sons. That's all that really matters. But she is married to someone else, not Carter. So Carter tracks her down, and he tracks her to her home and confronts her in front of her new family, in front of her husband and the kids. And he tells her, "Say your goodbyes. You're coming with me." And she obviously she doesn't want to, but Carter insists, and things get a little messy. And the next day, when the next day comes and the sun rises, we'll just say that the three boys are now alone. And we know that the rest of the series is them going on a mission to rescue their mother from Carter. And they're young boys, too. They're not like, when I read this solicitation, I thought, oh, these are like young, like teenagers, 20 something. No, these are like 10 years old or younger, and they are going to, in later issues, going to embark on a mission to save their mother. And that should be pretty interesting because they're so young. So, yeah, just another cool new book from Distillery. So, we have our A cover right here. We got some variants as well. So, here's a good look at the boys. I mean, that's basically what they were confronted with basically in this issue. This one is by Eduardo Risso. Yep, so that's your interior artist right there. We also have this Dave Johnson cover. There is a 1 in 25 Albuquerque variant that we're selling for $12.99. And then there's another 1 in 25 Albuquerque variant that we're selling for $24.99. And that's Carter Kane right there. So that's kind of the antagonist of this whole story.
Well, next up for me, I feel like I had a lot of fantasy related books
Yeah.
this week. This is Barbaric Born in Blood #1. And this is a continuation of the Barbaric series, which a ton of fun. I haven't read, I'm not completely caught up. I read the first few volumes, but even reading this one, you jump right in. It gives you a great recap. So, like all of them, this is written by Michael Morrissey and the art is by Nathan Gooden. And in this, we've got Owen, your barbarian that's got the crazy talking axe and all his team. They're going on a mission. You kind of pick up right in the middle of the mission where they're going to steal this chest from a dragon. Kind of, it's his dragon horde that he's got, and they're going to steal this chest back from it because the guy who hired him says, "Oh, it's got some of my grandmother's things in here, and it will really kind of clear her name of something if you find that." Well, they get it back. There's a lot of, we'll say, when the smoke settles
Mm-hmm.
after this dragon. Turns out maybe it wasn't, a great situation after all. Maybe the guy was lying a little bit. But all of that kind of leads them to being confronted by this tribe of people uh, who are in this area that Owen the Barbarian knows. And it's like, oh, I remember my barbarian tribe was tasked with kind of protecting these people. And he knows like who their leader is and everything. He's like, we can go with them. Only to find out his people didn't hold up their end of the deal. And because Owen is kind of sworn to do good, even though he doesn't want to, he's magically compelled to do good. He's going to kind of make up for what happened by taking on this great evil at the top of the mountain that hurt them. So that embarks us on our next adventure. Just a really cool new start to this. It's a great jumping on point.
Yeah.
It does give you a great recap at the beginning that even says like end recap when it's over. So that was great. Just super fun, kind of a mature comedy, fantasy, over the top story. And you get some origin stuff for Owen when he was younger. That's him on the cover.
Oh,
And
okay.
kind of what led him to become who the man he is now.
Yeah,
So
Barbaric's always great, yeah.
it's really, really good. The art, the colors, everything is so much fun. So just the one cover for this one as well.
Well, next we've got Vengeance of the Moon Knight #5, and this is a Blood Hunt tie-in. And I will go ahead and say, if you get both Blood Hunt #1 this week and Vengeance of the Moon Knight, read this one first. I mean, it's not like it's anything major, but the end of this leads directly into the first or second page of Blood Hunt, and it would be weird if you like read them out of order. So if you get both, read this one first. And this issue goes back and forth between like current time right now and slightly in the past. In the current time, 8 Ball. I love 8 Ball. It's good to have him back. He is talking to Dr. Sturman in the Midnight Mission, who's kind of their psychiatrist who they've all been talking to. That's what he's doing right now in the current moment. And then it flashes back just a tiny little bit when Hunter's Moon and Tigra confront the new Moon Knight, whose identity we learned at the very end of last issue, but I won't tell you just in case you haven't read it yet. But it's a big fight between the new Moon Knight and Tigra and Hunter's Moon, and it just goes back and forth between those two events. While they're fighting the new Moon Knight, they do try to convince him that it's not too late to change. That he and Mark Spector were very similar, and that Mark, even though he went through so much bad stuff, he was able to rise above it all to do good. And they can, they're trying to convince the new Moon Knight that he can also do the same thing. And like I said, the very, very last page leads right into the beginning of Blood Hunt. And it's really cool, and I can't wait to see. The next couple issues are going to tie into Blood Hunt. We're going to see Hunter's Moon and Tigra taking on a bunch of vampires, which I'm really excited about. So just another really solid issue of Moon Knight that's going to lead into the really good Blood Hunt. Oh, that's our A cover. I got a couple variants. I thought this was the only one. But we have the Martin Coccolo Stormbreakers variant also. And then there is the 1 in 25 Phil Noto variant that we're selling for $19.99.
And lastly, for me, as you can see, the two giant ones sitting up here, it's Savage Sword of Conan #2 in Titan's new Savage Sword, bringing it back. Like the previous issue, this is black and white. It is 100% reminiscent of the original Savage Sword of Conan. We've got multiple stories in here. So we've got a main story called Leaving the Garden. That's by Jim Zub, who is your main writer on Conan right now, with art by Richard Pace. It's a tale of vengeance and lost innocence. Really, really interesting art in this, kind of scratchy, but all of that to build some very dynamic images and that. We now have a letters page in this called Chainmail.
Oh, nice.
Which is just lovely.
Yeah.
And we have our continuation of the Solomon Kane story that's going to be running through a couple of issues with this. That was very, very cool. Plus all of the kind of pin-up images and cool art and everything like the previous one. Of course, all black and white. Just really,
newsprint, type paper.
You know, it feels like this feels like a comic.
Yeah. Well, it feels like an old school Savage Sword of Conan magazine from back in the day.
So just another one, highly recommend. You've got your main story that's a one and done, plus your ongoing Solomon Kane story. So don't miss out on that this week. So we've got our main cover, and then there is also the Virgin version of the cover with him fighting a very ugly spider, like scorpion bug man thing.
Something, yeah. That's a good description. Scorpion bug man, yeah.
Yep.
I got two left, just real quick. We've got Immortal Thor number 10. Wanted to tell you about this one because this is the next part of this continue or follows up, I guess, from the Roxxon Presents Thor comic that came out a couple weeks ago. That was super goofy, but in all the good ways, with the big, goofball Thor with his Roxxon branded hammer. Yeah, Chad Hammer, and he's got Mjolnir Premium and that kind of thing, and Thor truck and all that stuff. Well, in this one, that Thor, that big goofy Thor that was in that Roxxon Presents Thor book, he actually comes out of the pages into the real world, and he has to fight Thor. So you've got dumb Thor versus regular Thor in a big fight across the city. Now, the battle's actually kind of funny because this comic that the Minotaur and the Enchantress created and the magic that they imbued it with, it's messing with Thor's head. And he's trying to think strategically about how to beat this enemy, but and it's all done through thought bubbles. But he can't think of anything other than quippy banter. So things like, that's not a that's not a hammer, that's a hammer, and that kind of thing. Like, oh, he's right behind me, isn't he? And that kind of like quippy banter that Thor is not known for, but that's all that's going through his head, and he can't. It's clouding his mind basically. And so big fight between the two Thors, and there's also something kind of major that happens to one of the characters in this book that will make for an interesting Thor story going forward, because maybe Thor is gonna get framed for something that he didn't do. So that should be pretty cool as well. So just wanted to let you know that this is a pretty nice direct continuation of the really fun Roxxon Thor comic that we got a couple weeks ago.
Nice to hear that story is continuing. It wasn't like, oh, this was a fun one shot, but it didn't matter. It actually did matter.
Yeah, it mattered for sure. So we have our A cover right there. Got a couple of variants. This is the Greg Capullo variant, which looks super nice. And then we have the Sakura, what are these called again? The black suit variants. Yep. And then the last one is I just want to tell you about Iron Man number 18. Because this is wrapping, the X-Men are wrapping up. We've got all the Fall of X stuff. And because this has been so interconnected, this storyline is quickly wrapping up as well. In this one, Iron Man and Magneto and Fei Long all join forces to take out the remaining Stark Sentinels. But, and they're having a pretty easy go of it until Nimrod actually shows up, and they have to take him on as well. And then Magneto, we'll see more of him in the Fall of X number 5, I think. So, you kind of follow him over to that. And then we see a little bit of Jim Rhodes in this as well. He's been locked up in that prison for who knows how long.
Most of the series.
Yeah, so we see him in this, and he's going to feature prominently in the next issue, I believe. So just wanted to let you know that this is wrapping up as well. So we have our A cover. Then this is another black costume variant by Pete Woods. And then I like this one a lot. This is the 1 in 10 design variant of the new Mysterium armor that we're selling for $8.99.
I wonder if he's going to keep that armor after all this storyline ends.
I don't know. I mean, he's got it on in Blood Hunt number 1, so
it's true.
He'll have it for at least through that, I guess.
Like, see some vampires bite through that. Well,
yeah.
You have to read to find out.
Yeah, you have to read it.
But, that was it. As you see, it's a very interesting week with some very big titles, not a ton of numbered titles, because DC pretty much went with the annuals this week, all that kind of stuff. But still some great ones. So you can head over to infinityflux.net to see everything that came out and order it there while supplies last. You don't want to miss out on that. Stay tuned for our show coming up on Wednesday. We'll be going over all the books that you can pre-order, and your pre-orders are due by Sunday, so you don't want to miss that. And we did a free comic book day video.
2 of them.
2 of them.
Yeah.
a short one,
Right.
which is a little bit longer than our normal short ones, and a long one, so you can get a great idea of the things you can expect on Free Comic Book Day and help you make your selection a little bit easier. So you can get in, get out, and get all your deals
That's
and all
right.
that good stuff. So check that one out. Remember to subscribe because we are so close to
We are
3,000.
so close. I think we're 20 or less away from
Yeah, and I'm
3,000
sure there's
subscribers.
20 or something of you who haven't subscribed. So go ahead and subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything, but it means the world to us. And I believe that is it.
If you made it all the way to the end, leave us a ghost emoji. We've done blood emojis enough, but Space Ghost was so awesome. So leave us a little ghost emoji to let us know that you made it to the end with us.
Yes, absolutely. And until next time, see ya.
ya.